need to support. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Currently, we represent approximately 15 organizations which offer over 100 products nationwide. Please contact Medicare.gov or your local state health insurance program to get information on all of your options. I have to tell you this because I'm going to be talking about certain points about Medicare, even though I'm not on, you know, selling you or advising on any particular financial topic. And this is important to me because it tells you kind of how close to the line I'm coming and the risk that we are taking here, actually, candidly speaking. Um, we're going to discuss this is our agenda here for this morning. We're on simulcast here, 2 YouTube channels, and on Facebook here, as well as Twitch. I'm not a young person by any means, so I'm not gonna. So if you're here for streaming games, this is the wrong channel. That all said, we're gonna rip through here. I'm gonna try to only take an hour. Before that, I need to get to here. The number one place for me, always, the starting point is always this newsletter, Jay's Corner. jo.substack.com. You can get links below in the text below the video. There's a free version, there's a paid version. And we're going to get into the paid version, and the reason for it is here, which is that, what happens is when you come, it allows you to get access to other articles, videos, insight. The concern I have always is the fact that I'm highly regulated, and I have a number of different other affiliations going on, right? There's my book, the fact that I have licenses, the fact that I'm a certified financial planner, the fact that I'm an education fellow with the Alliance for Lifetime Income, which is a nonprofit organization, which is not a sales organization, but I've got colleagues there and highly qualified ones. So I can't be running the commercial risk, candidly, of some person out of left field coming and saying that, oh, this person told me something and I was misinformed, blah, blah, blah. That, first of all, that's not going to be the case because, again, not financial advice. I'm not actually giving you too many opinions, is the reality, and forget political or philosophical opinions. That you are simply not going to receive here. There's a reason for that, because I'm not going to settle our differences. Just like I'm not going to settle our differences, the fact that, in a couple of hours, right, we're going to find out, and we, alma mater from Ann Arbor, who we're going to play. I'm not going to settle certain philosophical differences. That's just not going to occur. And it is a distraction. Because even if I disagreed with you entirely on everything that you stood for, the facts of what I'm going to tell you here on today's broadcast, on every broadcast, are going to apply to you. Candidly speaking, I'm very sure that certain persons that I have helped, that we've guided, we've told and done so wholeheartedly. That all said, the fact is that I'm sure that, when we put down the phone, the fact is that I may have disagreed with everything that person has stood for in every other walk of life. Guess what? Doesn't matter to me. Doesn't. We're going to do our job no matter what. Jay's Corner there is to separate the signal from the noise. So please sign up to the newsletter there. There's certain things about the things that I'm not going to break, which have to do, and I'm going to swerve here just as an intro. We're going to get right into the agenda here. And this gives you an idea on how much noise there actually is on the planet. Now, I don't know this person, right? Lots of followers, et cetera, et cetera. Why is health insurance so damn complicated? Just put universal health care through already so we can stop this bullshit. I pay more in taxes. Okay. And here is exactly why I have these broadcasts, these videos. All right. You'll pay more in taxes, but guess what? You need to be elected in order to be in a spot to enact whatever your philosophical philosophy to be. You need to be elected in order to enact taxes. And very simply, you're Miss Perfect, you live in a shoe, you have so many children, you don't know what to do. You have $0 to pay for extra taxes. You're not, from a practical point of view, you're not electing the person to enact this stuff. You're just not. That's the common sense, practical reality. It's not because I'm necessarily agreeing or disagreeing here. The reality is healthcare delivery, so complicated. You can take any side. I don't care. I'll take the other side for sport. We'll debate for 20 hours. We will be exactly where we started. I will have gotten you to a stalemate. Almost for sure. The issue here is not only is this impractical, but it gets mixed up with things that make complete sense. This is another post from the same person, which is to choose people who are good for your mental health, which is not wrong necessarily, except for the issue is that the person is saying, okay, choose people who are good for your mental health. Doesn't that mean that the person has to have some common sense? You can understand how mixed it might be. Okay, on to the show. Medicare annual election period ends December 7th. No doubt about that. You can click Maximize Your Medicare, the website for the book. If you still need guidance, there's a very few number of days, right? 4 days, basically. That said, can we wheel around? Our existing clients have all been, and new clients, everyone has been taken care of. We're ready now. You can just send an email. Do I think that there are going to continue to be headlines to say this, that, or the other? I don't think there's any doubt, right? We are not getting away from the fact of number one choice being Medigap and Medicare Advantage. Let's leave out the complications for enrollment. Let's leave that out for now, right? We've got an entire website to deal with that, right? We've got an entire website to educate people on how to get enrolled, when the right timing is, who the situations might be where your timing would be different, right? It's going to vary. People are not working only to 65 and then immediately going on to Medicare and retiring, because full retirement age under Social Security is no longer 65 years old. Over here, for paid subscriber, they get access to this spreadsheet, which has all the different issues that we've discussed here on videos, etc. Right? A lot of them, complicated ones, no question, but the point is, it's not that simple to just simply say, and I've seen this online, of course, oh, well, all I do is contact Medicare.gov. The world isn't as simple as that, right? The issues are not as simple as that, right? Which is, and you can see, this is what I was saying, which is that this type of headline is going to continue. We are not getting away from that. In fact, United Healthcare announced the other day that something like 90,000 physicians are employees of United Healthcare now. That United Healthcare now owns and is the employer of 90,000 physicians around the country. This is not to single out United Healthcare. It happens to be the largest carrier. There are going to be other carriers that are also involved in very similar activities. We're not getting away from that. It does complicate things because of the fact of the different agendas and the crossfire. It's just giving you an illustration of how complicated healthcare delivery in the United States is. And before people could, like I said, I again say, before I get on the high horse of people getting on the high horse, well, it doesn't exist this way in other countries. And then they come up with all these different statistics. I'm going to go back to the idea of this, which is that, it's this complicated because this thing that would require a different tax setup, which that's why I started today in this way, circling back after less than 11 minutes, which is, yeah, sure. If you had that philosophical thought, then you have to have the practical execution of that thought. Not possible in the United States. So as a result, over there, it works this way. Over there, it's great. I've got a fifth cousin who has this other, setup. Yeah, you can't have that here because you have to pay more in taxes. And again, I'm not interested in those kind of positions where I get a vote or even, try to influence it, because I already know the fact that, and I could fix it, maybe, but I promise you that the solutions would affect some of the huge stakeholders to such a degree, my car would mysteriously drive off the side of a mountain. Yeah, that is, absolutely the case. Okay. Anyway, back to December 7th. Over here, you can go to I'm going to tell you about one other thing here, which should have been included here in this. And I'm going to insert the row below, which is Q1, Medicare Advantage plan members have an additional option. Now, you need to be an existing member. So you have Medicare Advantage Plan 300. Can you switch to Medicare Advantage Plan 200? Yes, you can anytime between now and December 7th. You can also switch during quarter 1. You can also cancel during Q1 from your existing Medicare Advantage plan. You can cancel it entirely and return to original Medicare. And at that time, try to get to Medigap. The answer to that is yes. But tons of other videos to tell you from me, which is to say that you need to be very, very careful here, because you are exposing yourself to not having health care coverage under Medicare beyond a certain point, which is that you have unlimited financial downside. Unlimited financial downside of original Medicare. I'm going to say this last point here before moving on to the next, which is, when you see all these other things about cost overruns, Medicare Advantage costs too much, this largely ignores the fact that there must be an out-of-pocket maximum. I'm not here to settle this, right? I'm not going to call up every think tank that spews out the fact that, Medicare Advantage costs more than original Medicare to the system, which is also not necessarily true. We're going to get to that as my last point here under Medicare, which is that original Medicare, the federal red, white, and blue card, it does not have this maximum limit. So if you have $5 billion of healthcare services, right, if you have the red, white, and blue card alone, you don't have a financial maximum liability. You don't, if you have it alone. If you have Medigap, you don't have this problem. Why? Because Medigap pays for everything that Medicare doesn't. Let's just presume Plan G, Plan N, the two most popular plans. K and L have out-of-pocket maximum limits. Every Medicare Advantage plan has an out-of-pocket maximum limit. Must. So, when I hear pushback about Medicare Advantage, I never see the analysis, the figure to say, yeah, but every Medicare Advantage plan costs more because you've got this additional feature here that is not quantified in any of the quotes I've seen. Not one. This is a big deal, right? Because I'm a financial person, certified financial planner. The point here is so that if some very unexpected event, let's just say you're Mr. Average, and some crazy thing happens, you find, you have a genetic defect that doesn't show up, and now you have $5 million of costs. If you have a Medicare Advantage plan, every year there's an out-of-pocket maximum. This is glossed over / ignored in every statistic I have ever read about the fact that Medicare Advantage costs the planet more. Am I going to resolve this? No. But this is the key fact. See, it's killing me, the issue that people gloss over, and the fact that we've got all of these other issues. Yeah, those are still going to exist, right? Like I said, we're not getting away from this. But the fact is that it can also coexist, gives you an idea on how complicated it is. How complicated it is. There was one other point, I forgot it. Let's just continue to move on because I'm going to try to keep this to an hour as always. Health insurance enrollment. The individual, for those not 65, for those not yet Medicare eligible, this is the deadline. This is the timeline through January 15th. So I've made a lot of comments about this. In here's this website where you can get your estimate. Let's just use Ann Arbor for the moment. We'll find out who we're playing in a couple of hours, I think. And let's just call yourself 45 years old, male. And let's just say you make $50,000 a year. The reality is you can get this $1,000 a year savings, right? Which is 85 times 12, approximately 1,000. If my math is right. I think it's right. And then now, importantly here, I did not say that this is, you just go in here and scroll through here and just click. I didn't say that, right? The channel here is to give you the reasoning. That should not be mixed up. And let's just go here. That should not be mixed up at all, right? At all. Should not be mixed up with the idea of execution. Too frequently, what ends up happening is people go, oh, Jay, you've explained how it works. I'm just going to go in here and just click. And because, you're annoying, I don't want to talk to you. Okay. Take a number. First of all, take a number. Right? Don't get me wrong. My own mother doesn't want to, talk to me on some of this stuff. But the fact is that choosing here is actually more complicated than Medicare. And the simple reason is the financial output here, the balance between premium, what you require, how much you're going to incur, and the out-of-pocket maximum, this combination, the variety of different outcomes under the Affordable Care Act is way wider than it is under Medicare. And so now you're a person who's not Mr. Perfect, Miss Perfect, and you're below 65. Now the choice is much more complicated. And oh, by the way, 90 plans in Ann Arbor alone. And in other cities, it'll be well over 100, way over 100. So urge caution. But that said, it's also sounds complicated, but as you can see, it is worth it. Because now, let's just say you make $40,000 a year. And this is just a simple example. Now the savings here is 200 times 12. It's 2,400. It's actually 2,500, right? Because I've rounded down. It's $2,500 a year. This is too big to just gloss over and say, oh, I'm just going to click, or I'm just going to blow this off. I'm not going to try to pursue this. And I'm just going to say, this is also the place of opportunity. For those persons, 50, 55, your binoculars are on retirement. Maybe you have enough. Maybe you're considering other financial situations. These numbers are so big that you can see what can happen here. Let's just add yourself and make yourself 60 years old. Right? And let's say you have a spouse and also 60. Okay? This number here, at $40,000 a year, you can see this. This is $15,000 a year on expenses saved. $15,000. This is so big that the reality is that your entire retirement timeline can change now. And simply due to the fact that I'm annoying and you don't want to go over these details has changed your entire retirement decision making? Call me crazy. For me, I don't overlook this detail. Again, so complicated it's killing me. And it's regrettable because what we have here is a bunch of hysteria, right? We have a lot of hysteria. You'll see it. This is retirement emergency. And I probably have this is wrong, right? But what you have here is you'll hear this in things about underprepared. Lots of people are underprepared for retirement. And while that can be true, it can also be true that actually that the figures are wrong, and like you now saw, right? As I go through here, that I just showed you, that this is entirely possible, even at 50,000. And you see it here. This is too big to simply gloss over. And now you can understand why I spend lots of time here talking about these different topics, all in combinations with each other. A single topic can change the entire trajectory. And while all of the public-facing information remains to be, what happened at Tesla, what's going on with, OpenAI and Microsoft, and that's all understandable. What I'm describing is this number in stone. This is a federal rule. There's no uncertainty here to you getting it as long as your information that you've put in here when working with us is correct. If this information is correct, then this is possible. Absolutely the case. I'm not sure. So what you have here, I am sure. I am sure of the topic, actually, right? Which is the point of why we've got all of these different topics. And it does explain to you kind of why I have to have these other measures and other types of services at different prices, right? The idea that you're going to get the answer in a 10-minute video and get the solution of all of the different combinations, the crossover, one of my clients recently said, I'm going to hijack that term for every time I can, that you're going to be able to deal with the crossover across these issues. Possible, probable, very improbable. I'm just going to give you, and the reality is without throwing a rock at too many people, I try to keep it to a minimum, which is that the financial guidance industry is to talk about a very specific item, a very specific one. I'm a long-term care specialist. I'm a life insurance specialist. I'm Rumpelstiltskin. I can turn your stocks into gold. So first of all, that's not necessarily the case, right? You don't have a crystal ball. If you do have a crystal ball, don't get me wrong. You can ignore pretty much everything I'm saying, except for one thing. Just call me up. We'll deal with that one specific item. You're retired by Tuesday. Sure. If you have a crystal ball, you can be retired by Tuesday. It is the fact you don't have a crystal ball and the fact that these topics cross over and affect one another. That's why this 10-minute video on a 10-minute video about, Roth IRA in isolation just cannot be the complete answer. It might be the complete answer by randomness. That doesn't define it to be the right answer. One variation changes, one little detail changes, right? And now all of a sudden the entire solution changed, right? Because if this person makes $300,000, they don't get this $15,000. So as a result, one detail changed. This is wrong. And then all of a sudden, everything else, then the domino effect onto the other topics changes. We've stopped this. This is from the past. 29 minutes, perfect. I'm going to talk about this one thing here because here we're going to go to financial markets as well as the financial backdrop. You can remember that I put this here and that this is very important to have this household income, right? Couple other last details. You need to use exchanges in order to capture these amounts. Whether that be your state has a state-specific exchange, whether you're using the federal exchange. This links up to the federal exchange. The point is, in order to capture the APTC, you must use the exchange. You cannot, many carriers, you can go to the carrier site. They're going to ask you, do you want to check on savings? It's basically doing that in the background, right? So you need to use an on-exchange plan using the Affordable Care Act to capture the advanced premium tax credit. For more information on that, by the way, you see this article. Yours truly here, my paper for Protected Alliance for Lifetime Income. Right? You can read the full paper. Very nerve-wracking to see what happens when, my stuff, on Jay's corner, I got like tons of typos and this, that, the other, like incomplete sentences. All of a sudden, my writing is like actually typeset. Whoa. Anyway, can't take yourself too seriously. All right. Market update. Oh, I missed the point, didn't I? I'm going to bring you up to date on one issue here. This, very important here, this mistake has to do with the next topic. Yeah. Household income includes important stuff which has to do with financial markets and year-end planning, which is going to take the next half of today's broadcast. So let's first talk about year-end planning. I'm going to change the order here. I'm going to move this, right? This year-end stuff here is actually going to move up to here. Right, so year-end planning, let's do it now, right? And like I said, you would have thought that I would have planned and all this kind of other stuff. I don't have time for any of that. Every time I broadcast, I wake up in some panic, going, "Oh no, I'm underprepared. The fact is, we don't have time for the preparation in advance. Much of this is on the fly, which which is my excuse of the poor video quality, right? Anyway, let's go to year-end capital gains taxes. And the reason I bring it up now is because what the mistake that occurs every single year, ask any CPA, is this is misreported, misestimated. And the reason for that is because why? At year end, if you own securities, this also includes capital gains and dividend and interest taxes. If you receive dividends, interest, or capital gains, these are taxable events. And now you can see the crossover. Thank you so much to Mike C. Here. Therefore, ripple effect to here. It's the key point today. And now you can see the interactions. Because what ends up happening is as a result of this, people lose track. People have gone to the wrong person. Meaning, by wrong, I mean the silo. And this is what I'm calling the silo effect, a phrase I've used many, many occasions. This is why the 10-minute video doesn't work, right? I realize that people want the answer. But if you get the reasoning wrong and one detail is missed, the answer becomes immediately wrong. And don't get me mistaken, which is the door can swing the other way. It means that the opportunity may have also been missed. It's just the other side of the same coin. It's just that the minus gets all the attention, right? But the plus also exists. I am not a David Downer. I'm not. I'm looking for opportunity for our client base, opportunities as well. The thing that people miss here is capital gains and creates this, has this situation. And you can see inherently this can create problems. And you'll see it here. I have made this, right? I have made this the topic of a video, 18 months ago? 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Which is that Vanguard, a targeted date fund, and then therefore Vanguard as the manager of it was subject to a lawsuit. And you can see what ended up happening here. Here it is here, and I'm not going to review the facts of the lawsuit itself. Complicated things. Your takeaways here, however, right, is that what is overlooked are that mutual funds are ultimately black boxes. Ultimately. I didn't say the people running them are dishonest. I'm not saying that they're, underqualified. In fact, it's almost impossible that the person actually running the fund is incompetent. I just find that almost impossible, right? Just competition alone tells you, again, use your common sense. The person inside there, right, is very, very likely very competent. If you want to see an example of it, you can see other interviews on Jay's Corner on the YouTube channel. I had a conversation with Ann Lester, who used to run JP Morgan Retirement Services. Not incompetent. Furthest thing from it. That said, the structure of mutual funds are ultimately black boxes. What that does is you are left, right, with this ripple effect of here. You're the one left with this, right? Vanguard may have done exactly what they were supposed to, or whoever's running your mutual funds in your holdings may have done exactly what they're supposed to. as mandated by their documents and justified and entirely within regulation. That is not the issue. The issue is the crossover that I just talked about. That lands on your desk. And that becomes your issue. Now, the reality is that this should be a year-round activity. And I'm going to give you some insight here. Right? Inside here, over on the far right-hand side, and like I said, I'm just going to say without telling you what because it hasn't yet been decided, we've got a few weeks. These prices are not going to sustain themselves here. You can lock them in, but my point, you can lock them in before the end of the year. But my point here to you is that should be a year-round activity, meaning that these numbers, which can affect your taxable income, which will, as I've shown you, right, under the quote of health, under the quoting tool for individual health insurance. And now you can see how big it is. It's enormous. It's bigger than you spending time choosing between Vanguard Ginnie Mae and Fidelity Ginnie Mae mutual fund. Way bigger, right? 15 grand a year, I promise you, these two line items with the same identical risk, basically, very replicating for Bandoleros, right? We'll get to Bandoleros shortly. The marginal difference here of getting this wrong versus getting this right is not going to be anywhere close to this. No way. Think through yourself how big your portfolio must be to blow this off and to ignore this. And I promise you, the person with multi-millions of dollars, right? You know how they got there? They didn't overlook this detail. I promise you that. And if it was my responsibility and I overlooked it and that was the client, I would expect heat. Lots of heat. And I would have earned it, right? I would have earned the blowback if I had overlooked this detail for a client as a result of the fact that I didn't understand how this worked. This is happening in every zip code. I promise. Some of the world knows this, meaning that this should be a year-round activity. The stable, I hijacked from a different planet, right? The stable gets this service embedded. It's embedded in here, right over here. Because I realize that it's big and because it is ultimately a black box. So we need to watch what's going on inside to the greatest degree that we can. The reason that this becomes important is that now you can understand the fact that there are other technologies that are coming out in the world. There's this phrase called direct indexing. And let's just take a look here, and I'm just going to show it to you, right, to give you an idea. Custom indexing, you'll see lots of different articles. And in a day and age where artificial intelligence is everywhere, you know, the average brokers and wealth management funds here or wealth management practices here are going to be looking at this and be pretty worried. So just like this is the AI answer, right? This is not professional financial advice. But can this direct index an automated investment strategy to replicate a stock index? And now you can understand Jay's corner when I'm talking about other ideas of finance. You know, I've tried to explain this idea, the key point of replication, right? Which boils down to, if I can make minestrone soup that tastes exactly the same for slightly cheaper, I do it. And in the same way, your specific situation make you allergic to oregano, right? You need to have that ingredient out of this minestrone soup, right? Because of your individual situation. Can you replicate with that tweak? The answer is yes. Can this be done automatically using artificial intelligence and algorithm? I don't see a barrier to it. Can you do this better than a human? This is the issue. Is it the people who know that this is the case and I'm revealing it to you today are very unlikely to be pointing you to this. Why? Because it could threaten their business. This is it's not going to happen overnight. Can this threaten the entirety, the structure? Maybe. The flip side is, can this be deployed by yourself? No, I'm safe. Right? I'm not directly unemployed immediately, right? Nor are money managers, because this won't be the complete answer. A. And B, again, like I was talking about health insurance, right? Just randomly choosing because they said they could do this, right? There's going to be 90. There aren't going to be 90 direct indexing options. There are going to be 900. And one's going to be no oregano. One's going to be no basil. One's going to be not too much salt. One's going to be not too much pepper. There are going to be tons of variations of this. I don't need a crystal ball to know this, right? This is not me making some heroic prediction. But you can see replicated stock index, this is incomplete, can replicate a blank. This also means that in theory, that you could replicate an entire portfolio. The answer to that is yes. And oh yeah, by the way, remember when I said oregano? Why don't I just tweak it to minimize my capital gains and dividend taxes? And then the result being, I can then capture the maximum APTC. In other words, you may think it's natural, right? I mean, that's our planet. You may think I'm here to say, okay, this is bad, that's bad, they're here, they're ripping you off, they're ripping you off, etc. That is not the case. It is simply that finding the optimal solution for you does require an understanding of the fact that all of these different topics here, and many, many more, all these ones down here at the bottom, take a look. I can't blow up the size. Annuity, Fisher, investment, savers, win. I mean, we're going to get to savers, win. But you can see it down here. This is not the full set of factors that can affect, and if any single one of these changes, now all of a sudden your solution could change, which can also mean early retirement is entirely possible. It's not only that, what it is not, it is not, okay, worth the tirade of something that cannot be done in the real world. It is not. How about we get back to work and think through the interactions instead? Let's just move to market update. So for newcomers here on Facebook today for the first time, for newcomers, the underlying message to this newsletter is stocks for show, bonds for dough. So my professional background from the bond market, it's not due to bias in that way. It is due to fact. It is due to fact, which is basically the following, right? Which is savers win, and here it is, right? And I know that this formula is on basically many versions of the newsletter, right? For newcomers, right? When I say bonds for dough, that I'm talking about interest rates, which is R. So basically speaking, R much higher compared to 3 years ago, creating all sorts of issues on NPV, which are price, value of stuff. Right? It has taken, 3 years for equities to be at this basically flat. The number one thing here is R. We're not getting away from that today. We will not be getting that way from a decade. And again, it kind of is like the theme of this newsletter, which is to try to explain the background reasoning. And if you can understand my point, I spend lots of time trying to undo the incorrect narrative, undo what might look like it's a popular and nice, convenient message to buy. But the reality is that this factors affecting R are way bigger and around the planet by the biggest pools of capital and the people deciding on those pools of capital. There is no getting around that. So your 10 shares of Facebook do not matter in this context. They don't. It's fun and exciting and nice to cling on to, right? I know I turn on Facebook. I'm broadcasting on Facebook. It's nothing against Facebook. I have no opinion. It's just simply so far down the totem pole in importance to your net present value of all of your financial holdings. And this is every walk of life, right? There's no difference here between this and your decision to take out a loan to buy a home. There isn't, right? This formula formed the basis by which the price was established. So it's not going to matter. By the way, insurance, same. The cost of whether or not extended warranty on your refrigerator, same. Right? You're continuing to iterate around here, running different experiments of the same pattern. Jay's Corner is here to try to explain this and then explain the implications of it. Pretty simple. Around the world, what you've seen for the past month is a dramatic decline in this R. You can see it here. This is Bloomberg. And this, so I'm a subscriber. Anyway, so these are the rates. This is the R of around the world. Look at the past month. Huge. Right? This is not normal, right? By no means should we be saying that this is normal. Oh, yeah, well, the 10-year note, the 10-year interest rate's going to decline up and down by 40 basis points. This 38 is in basis points, which is 0.01%. And again, for those of you who are numerically challenged, right? This is 0.01%. It gives you an idea how exact we are measuring stuff when it comes to math of money. This is 38.38%. The dramatic, and to say that this is not normal is probably best said here. I did do a little preparing, right? So you can see it here. This is the past month. The pink line is stocks up a whopping 6.6%. The blue line is the U.S. government long-dated treasury market, up more than stocks in the same month, which is just uh, not normal, right? That is not normal. It is very dramatic. It explains to you what has happened over this past month. Now, again, today's not financial advice. I don't have a crystal ball. We are an observer. Very important for newcomers, especially, right? We are observing facts and then you're thinking through in your strategy or financial plan, etc., etc. Okay, now what happens to all of these moving parts? Now what happens? We are not here to try to determine or to guess which way up or down. They're full-time, that's a full-time profession, right? Full-time. And even then, they're not necessarily correct. So there's a reason that I use poker analogies everywhere, right? Because people understand poker or believe that they do, right? In the same way, right? You know what the facts are. The question is, you're going to get a new fact, and how are you going to adjust or not? That doesn't mean you ignore the new fact. Doesn't. I'm here to update you on the new fact here and give you a context of how dramatic it is. And that's what we have here. Everything actually makes then, if you followed the last 10 minutes, everything makes sense here. Everything. Right? We've had globally lower interest rates. I've already stated that the number one factor of prices is interest rates of everything. Therefore, what? Yeah, of course. Risky securities higher. End of story. When you add the following fact, and let's just go over here, and this just gives you a top-down, not very specific. This is something called the VIX, which tells you the degree of up and down. We're not going to debate on whether all sorts of term structure of volatility curves. So, if you're an options trading firm and you're saying, okay, this guy is taking all sorts of shortcuts, yeah. Right? We're not going to get to the granularity of options trading and, like I said, structure of volatility curves. But you can see, even in this past couple of months, the amount of decline of volatility. When volatility decline, think of all of these things, all of these different factors. Interest rates lower, volatility lower. It is entirely logical. Then, yes, stocks higher. Given in that order with that backdrop. Right? And this is why people get confused. They think, oh, well, this is my primary prediction. This is my primary. No, that is the result of this and this. That is the result of what happened. Because it also then explains everything that happened over the last 2 years, right? Which is, this was then just flipped upside down. Meaning that I could have just simply turned these to plus, and what would have happened? Well, this is reversed, and that's exactly what you got. Again, bigger markets first. This is the biggest. Now, last point here, we're almost out of time. I want to point out to you that over the past year, I have been saying in this newsletter, this interest rate movement has been hugely in favor for everyday people. Aside from inflation, right? We know that Cheerios is $7. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about saving, planning, investing, whatever it would be. The aspect of higher interest rate does help certain people, and that's savers, right? That what I've been saying is that, okay, in the past, what has happened is since interest rates were so low, there was no alternative but to buy stocks that then increased the pressure on equity markets, therefore increasing the price of stocks in the same way as your neighborhood house has, gone up by too much over the past 10 years. Interest rates lower, people still with jobs, interest rates continue to lower, your competing buyer pushed up the price, and now all of a sudden your house went higher. Same thing. But at some point here, okay, well, now you're a planner. The fact is that maybe you don't want these extra risks. You don't want these risks that you have actually fought through in the wrong order, right? That now savers win now. And this is old. And you can see what I've put here in blue. That I was saying at that time, thing about the internet, you've got date and time stamps now. You don't get to say, see, I knew that's what happened was going to happen. At that time, what I was saying is that interest rates were higher, and now the opportunity for savers was there. What I'm also going to say now is just the inverse of that, which is we're an observer here, which is winning now. There's nowhere here that says win forever. And you can see facts changed. So without a crystal ball, again, it was the case a year ago. I've been saying, look, take a look at this stuff to make sure that this doesn't fit you. Just make sure. Make sure, because one central fact could have changed everything. One central fact could have changed everything. You can see the common thread across these different topics. The same principle, reasoning through these different topics that you may have believed were unrelated. They're precisely related. And why, while I appreciate somebody wrote in, said, hey, can you make this a 10-minute video? How? Right? I could have told you about this topic in 10 minutes. Still, the answer is no, right? I wouldn't have been able to discuss this in 10 minutes either, much less the interaction across the different topics. Financial markets, these things move around notably. And for those who have planned, who have saved, who have thought through the different moving parts, who have understood correctly, right? Stocks for show bonds, who understood stocks for show bonds from the jump, you understand that, oh, there are these other ripple effects going on that I could have used for my huge benefit. Even here, not forever, necessarily. We don't know. We're not sure. The stunning thing here is to prove that you have no crystal ball, right? Is that interest rate this dramatically, even though this person here, the most important person in financial markets, single most important person, no, it's not you, Mr. President. No, it isn't. I don't think you make the top 5. This is Friday. Friday, 2 days ago, right? The market forces have pushed these interest rates down, despite the fact the most influential individual person saying, look, interest rates may not be going lower at all. In fact, they may be forced to push rates higher. On and on it goes, everyone. I'd love to tell you that, you can just set it and forget it. The world's more complicated than that. We're not going to be settling our personal philosophies here. I wouldn't even try it. Be sure to sign up to Jay's Corner, jaeoh.substack.com. Text in links everywhere online. If you have questions, info at gh2benefits.com. Let's call it a wrap. Find out who Michigan plays in a few minutes. Go Blue.